Building a gaming PC can be a daunting task at the best of times, and while personally I'd always recommend giving it a go yourself, I also acknowledge it isn't for everybody. And with so many great pre-built options on the market, how do you go about picking which is best for you, and avoid the ones that are plainly a bit of a rip-off? Well, in this video, I'm going to be looking at all the best pre-builts you can buy right now, telling you how to spot a good deal and also a bad deal, and what to look for when buying your next pre-built gaming PC. Let's do this. To say there is a long list of pre-built system manufacturers would frankly be an understatement. From older, more traditional names like Origin PC, iBuyPower, CyberPower and Maingear, to newer entrants like Skytech Gaming and Build Redux, you really are spoilt for choice. And to make matters even more confusing, manufacturers like Cooler Master, Corsair, MSI and NZXT now also sell complete PC builds, using primarily their own components. So picking the best one is a bit of a nightmare. We've found that the likes of Build Redux and Skytech, newer brands, tend to offer slightly more value as disruptive players within the space, and offer a little bit more transparency by way of cost and how much money they're actually making on some of the systems they assemble. Tier 1 brands like MSI, Cooler Master and NZXT, who manufacture their own individual components, also have the unique advantage of, well, their own components. One of the biggest criticisms of pre-builts in years gone by is that they use a cheap motherboard or a cheap case or a cheap power supply to cut costs and increase margin. And while that is still a widespread practice in the system integrator space, the likes of Corsair, for example, use all their own components in their build. Obviously, they make more money this way as they make the components, but it means you're basically guaranteed a higher quality system with sometimes better parts. You'll also see system builders like Origin and Maingear have gone a bit more high-end. There are also advantages to other builders like iBuyPower. While the reviews may be a little more mixed, they tend to have a huge availability of systems, with their same-day ready systems available to ship pretty much immediately. Now, the first place that I tend to go when looking at systems is Newegg. That's because they have a huge variety of systems from a wide range of different builders. I'm going to look first of all at systems under $1,000 and work our way up the budget echelons as we go, considering all the different builders that are out there to find the best deals. As a word of warning, if you're buying a pre-built, I'd recommend spending at least $800 but preferably $1,000. Now, I know what you're thinking, James, we want deals. I don't want to spend loads and loads of money. But the fact of the matter is that pre-built sites have to make a profit. And on lower tier systems, you're going to see far more cuts that affect performance than on higher end builds. And if you haven't got the money to spend, build it yourself. That's where the used market on a $700 build will really come into play and deliver unparalleled value when compared to pre-built systems. But let's go on to Newegg, shall we? And let's actually have a look at what on earth they've got available. I'm going to set the budget from $850 to $1,150 US and hit apply and see what components are actually able to get for this price. Let's also sort by best selling so we can get a feel of what other people at this price point are actually buying. And surprise, surprise, this doesn't actually shock me. The 3 best selling systems all come in from Skytech Gaming. We've actually seen some really great stuff with Skytech and have been pretty impressed with the range of systems on offer. My initial impressions of these 2 systems, both coming in at $899 at the time of filming, latest pricing and availability will be linked down below, shows actually what you can achieve for under $1,000. At $899, you'll get yourself an RTX 3060. If we buy that card brand new on Newegg right now, that's going to cost about $300, I want to say. Yeah, the cheapest one, $309 US, and that is by far and away the lowest price card on the list. And you can see how already over a third of the potential build budget is dominated by the GPU. That's a good start. You can get it with either a Ryzen 5 3600, a chip that's getting a bit long in the tooth, or an i5 12100F. Equally not quite as modern, but probably going to give you a little bit more power. And the rest of the specs look pretty good. While the case choice here is undoubtedly more budget friendly than what I would prefer in my own system, things like a full mesh panel with 3 fans at the front are a great sign that the system won't run particularly hot and shouldn't suffer from thermal throttling. As far as other components go, you can also see that it's got a 600 watt power supply, it's 80 plus gold. Just because you're buying a pre-built doesn't mean you should stop caring about the certifications of the components. If you would normally buy a power supply with an 80 plus silver, bronze, gold rating, why wouldn't you do that when picking up a pre-built? We can also see that it's got 16 gigs of RAM, a little bit on the low side, but for $900, I don't think I could do much better using my own money, and a 1TB NVMe SSD. Windows 11 is also included, something which would cost you legitimately $100. I'm sure many of you have ways you can find it a little bit cheaper. However, pretty good, and often a lot of these sites now will give you frame rate indications as to the kind of performance you can expect. If you want to verify these numbers, the best thing to do is read reviews of the GPU or search for that specific GPU and CPU combo. Especially with the RTX 3060, there is loads of data available. But if I go back to the search results, you can see where spending a little bit more money has a massive impact in the pre-built market. Take, for example, another Skytech system. They tend to be the best builder, in my opinion, under $1,500. As we'll see in a moment, other brands just won't compete at this price point. Pop your budget up by 100 from $899 to $999, and the CPU increases from a 3600 to a 5600X. Brand new, that CPU upgrade is going to cost another $60 or $70 at least, while the GPU upgrade from a 3060 to a 3060 Ti also represents another, I want to say, $60 or $70 of spend. That means that you're getting $150 or so and a far better performing system for only another $100. These kind of gains continue up the price bracket. Spend just over $1,100 and the card in choice goes up to a 4060 Ti. Now, I know that's a GPU with some problems, but it's a lot more powerful than a 3060 from the system we were looking at just a moment ago. Now, this is where you have to be really, really careful in the pre-built market. This is both a deals and a don't waste your money video. If we look at NZXT's build website and take a look at their Player One system, that's their cheapest system, you can see all of a sudden where actually some of the value can be found. Their system at $750, so a little bit cheaper than the Skytech one, only has a 3050. I wouldn't even bother. Move up to the 3060 build and you'd be spending $950. Yes, you're getting a better value case, and in terms of other components, CPU's the same, memory's the same, power supply's the same, but the storage is actually less. So this is going to cost you $50 more than the Skytech system, a worse overall value proposition, but admittedly a little bit more upgradability if you wanted, of course, to change it before it is delivered. So then, the best pre-built system for about $1,000 in my view would be the $999 Skytech Archangel with a Ryzen 5 5600X and a 3060 Ti. You would struggle to build that system with a legitimate Windows 11 license all in yourself for $1,000, making this a really compelling option for those of you on a budget, especially in the current climate. Let's say that you've got a bit more money to spend. Let's pop the budget up to $1,200 $1,200 to $1,500, and let's see what can be achieved. Let's hit apply on our Newegg window, and all of a sudden, I'm sorting by best selling, Skytech come up again. For $1,500, they're offering a 4070 PC build. I'm not a huge fan of the fans or the case, but that's only an aesthetic point, and your opinions may differ. With an i5 13400F, not bad, but not as good as some of the Ryzen options, a 1TB NVMe, and 32 gigs of DDR5 memory. Again, I think other manufacturers are going to struggle to compete at this price point, but let's give them a chance. Let's go back onto NZXT build and look at their Player 2 gaming PC build. That comes in at $1,600 and again gives you a 4070. The advantage, though, is you get a much better quality case. This is built inside the H5 Elite, a chassis we love. The CPU choice is also probably a little bit more in line with what I'd suggest, but you are getting older DDR4 memory, a lower wattage power supply, and a few more cost savings throughout the build. A lack of DDR5 memory is a real put-off for me in this instance. Of course, you can actually upgrade the system as well, but you can't swap out for a DDR5 motherboard and a newer processor on a different architecture. That, I think, is a step too far. Let's give other builders a chance though and take a look at iBuyPower. Now, they've had a little bit of mixed press over the years. However, they do some things really well, and for that they deserve a bit of credit. Let's have a look at what they can do for $1,500. See, here you're only getting a 4060 Ti on their $1,499 system. You're losing out a bit on the graphics card. The CPU is considerably better though, with an i7 13700F. Why? Only 16 gigs of memory and a case that, while it looks good, is going to be less practical on the airflow equation. You do get some included peripherals which you'll probably never use, and you can see all of a sudden why so many people buy the wrong pre-built. This isn't a bad system by any means, but they should have spent the money that they use for the i7 on knocking the graphics card up to an RTX 4070, rather than what we all know to be the slightly flawed, very flawed 4060 Ti. In fact, when you circle back and look at one of those Skytech systems from earlier, we managed to achieve a 4060 Ti, albeit with a worse CPU, for just over $1,200. It really is important that you understand the components on offer before going and splurging loads of money. So once again, Skytech seem to be the best option at this price point, and off camera we've looked at a load of different options and can't seem to find anything that comes close. Is it a perfect system? No. And is this the build I would put together personally for $1,500? It isn't far off, but not exactly. So let's actually up the budget, shall we? Let's say we want to spend $2,000. Let's see what is available for that $2,000 mark. Somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500. And let's see what becomes available. Here you can see that MSI are actually chiming in with one of their options. I actually really like that more brands are getting into the pre-built space. Their pricing has definitely got better on systems because of the competition. Once again, this is a slightly weird system from MSI. It's not bad, but it's peculiar. The i7 12th gen is odd. Why are we putting a 12th gen in? Probably because Intel have got something they want to get rid of. 4070 Ti, which is good, and obviously you're going to get an MSI tier graphics card, probably like a Ventus 3 fan, something along those lines. 2TB SSD, also really, really good. Windows 11 Home, specs are looking okay until you look at the memory. 16 gigs of DDR4, I wouldn't even consider it. And frankly, MSI, you shouldn't really be selling it. Skytech, I've got something once again that comes in just over the $2,000 mark. I don't even want to know how they're doing this. 7900 XTX in a 2099, but a $2,000 pre-built. Windows 11 Home, 850 watt PSU. Again, the 12700F crops up. And I'd say that's probably a bit of a weak point of that system. Again, they've only got 16 gigs of DDR4, so I couldn't even consider this system. And if you're wondering why they've done that, they've obviously done it to try and put the highest tier graphics card in a build possible. And in my mind, that's a total mistake. But it seems to be working as they're right at the top of the most popular sold systems. I'm sure though at this $2,000 price point, there are better options to be had. Looking through it, this $2,000 budget seems to be a harder time than what I'd perhaps hoped it might be. Let's have a look at what iBuyPower have got for that $2,000 price point. It might be that this is an area people consistently make mistakes, I don't know. I mean, instantly it's over $2,000 at $2,149, but this system with Windows 11, a 7700X, a 4070 Ti, and 32 gigs of RAM shows an instance where iBuyPower have definitely got it right. Even this build here for $1,749 has a 7700X with a 4070 and 32 gigs of DDR5 memory. I'm sure we can get closer though, and I think we've found it. $2,000 build in the Fractal, the wood Scandinavian, what's it called? The Fractal North, that's the one. 13700 KF, tick. Z790 motherboard, tick. 4070, tick. 32 gigs at 6,000 megahertz. It's a mega tick. And a 240mm all-in-one cooler. $2,000, you want the iBuyPower RDY Fractal BG001. An area look where, once again, iBuyPower showed at the lower budget they didn't compete. They had poor spec systems with weird CPU choices, not enough memory, and at $2,000 they get it right. And that's why it's so important to buy the right system. But what if you're balling, James? I've got $2,500 to spend. Let's see what Newegg's got on offer. I always use Newegg as a starting point. This isn't an ad for Newegg. There are affiliate links below, but they just tend to do so well at actually getting things within the right region. So let's have a look at that $2,500 to $3,000 price point. Load this up and let's see where we're at. To $2,500. In fact, let's go under $2,500. Let's do $2,200 to $2,600. Let's go for that kind of middle ground, and then we'll work our way up as we continue on. Best selling system is the MSI Aegis RS 13 NUF439US. 4070 Ti, DDR5 memory, 32 gigs, 2TB SSD, and a 13700 KF for $2,300. MSI, that's pretty solid. Never heard of ABS. They seem to have decent reviews and some nice spec systems with an RTX 4080. Skytech have got a 4080 system up for $2,599, but we saw that system earlier for just over $2,000 with a 7900 XTX. The whole point of a pre-built is that you shouldn't have to change the parts, but personally I'd buy that and just swap out 32 gigs of memory instead. That's going to give you better performance than a 4080 in most scenarios. And as we continue down the list, you can see there are plenty of options. Let's see where NZXT lies well on the gaming PCs with their Player 3 built inside the H9 Elite. So this starts at $2,399. You can get it in black or white in the H7 Flow actually. Their website's told a bit of a porky lie there. 13700 KF with a 4070 Ti, a little bit weak, 32 gigs of memory and a 1TB NVMe. Again, people talk about Corsair tax. There's a bit of an NZXT tax here, and for some unexplainable reason, there's a gigabyte all-in-one liquid cooler in an NZXT build system. What? In what world does that make any sense? And this is where NZXT haven't quite got the memo that Corsairs seem to get on their systems a little bit better. If I'm buying an NZXT build system, it's because I want NZXT parts. No offense, Gigabyte. If I'm buying an NZXT build, I don't want a gigabyte cooler because it should all work together. And I'm sorry, NZXT, that's stupid. It makes no sense to me. Let's see if I can calm down, compose myself, and iBuyPower can do a better job for that $2,500 budget. What have they got for $2,500? Here we go. This is a bit better. It's a mesh case, looks like a custom iBuyPower tower based on the Lee & Lee Lancool 205, or Lancool 2, sorry, 4080 Z790 motherboard, 2TB NVMe, RTX 4080. That is good value, not the rubbish that NZXT had on their website. Why NZXT? Why you do this to me? In terms of Corsair at this budget, they start to be a bit more competitive. You can see here you can get a system with a 7900 XT for $2,700, a little bit over, and it's presently out of stock, as a lot of Corsair systems sort of tend to come in and out of stock, but is spec quite nicely. And I'm guessing if we look at the images, it's got a Corsair cooler. It's got Corsair memory. You can sync it all with iQ, NZXT. I want to be able to use CAM if I buy one of your systems. Otherwise, your whole USP is gone. Anyway, one thing I really like about Corsair's systems as well is that you get a real transparent insight into the specs available. They tell you the exact specifications of all of your I/O ports and the Wi-Fi and the Ethernet and the motherboard name, and you just get a little bit more transparency, and on the whole, a Corsair spec build. But to round things off, what if you want to spend $3,000? Let's have a look what you can buy for $3,000. I know some of you like to spend a bit more than that, and if you do, check out the Prebuilt section on the website. We've got buyer's guides for $3,500 where you can find all of our favourite systems with everything we like and we don't like about them, written by our awesome team of writers. Check them out at the link down below. So what are the key takeaways from this, other than the fact I've moaned about NZXT, moaned about Corsair, moaned about basically every pre-built system builder? It's that there are amazing deals to be had. I mean, those systems for under $1,500 were amazing. Since when would you be able to get a 70-tier GPU in a pre-built system for $1,500? We're at the point where you can buy pre-builts that beat what you can build yourself. And for those who frankly don't want the hassle, I can fully see the appeal. But make sure the CPU and GPU combo is solid. Make sure any build over $1,200 has 32 gigabytes of memory. 16 gigs is just not good enough anymore. And the only way to give them that feedback is to just not buy the systems that aren't adequately spec'd. Is it a shame that pre-built systems often have spec deficiencies that novice builders, who are the target demographic for these systems after all, might not always be able to recognise? Yes. But are all the system deals out there on pre-builts bad? Certainly not. Any UK friends watching this video, I'll put my UK recommendations down below as well. We're kind of out of time in this video. Thank you for watching. Get subscribed if you want to see more from me, and as always, I'll see you hopefully in the next one.